Hello, my name is Rosabel and I will be presenting on the vulnerability of climate migrants. Climate migrants are often described as forgotten victims due to their exclusion from legal, political, and humanitarian systems meant to help those in crisis. With climate change set to inevitably intensify, we have a crucial responsibility to raise awareness of the vulnerabilities faced by underrepresented communities, as well as emphasize the urgent need for better protection and policy responses, and recognize how the impacts of climate change are not solely environmental. To understand the effects of climate migration, we must first recognize the environmental changes driving it. These include rising global temperatures, evident in the first graph, and more frequent extreme weather events such as floods, drought, and hurricanes, as well as slower onset changes such as sea level rise and desertification, evident in the figure on the right. Without significant action, these events will become more frequent and intense, displacing more people and leaving them to face legal insecurity, financial instability, and social exclusion. Climate migrants are people forced to move temporarily or permanently due to environmental changes linked to climate change. Most movement is internal, triggered by sudden short-term weather events such as hurricanes, whilst cross-border flows tend to follow more gradual change such as rising sea levels. However, displacement is rarely caused by climate alone. For example, rising sea levels may displace people in low-lying areas in Mekong Delta in Vietnam, whereas low-lying regions in the Netherlands avoid this through strong defences, highlighting how both climate and infrastructure shape migration, complicating definitions like climate refugee. One of the biggest challenges climate migrants face is the lack of legal recognition and protection in their country of destination, which leaves many in a state of limbo and unable to rebuild stable lives. This stems from a lack of recognition in the 1951 and updated 1967 Refugee Convention, which does not include climate-related displacement due to legal protection requiring proof of direct, immediate danger, which is difficult to prove in slow onset disasters such as drought, therefore leaving climate migrants without a legal category to seek asylum. However, as evident in the figures above, disaster-related internal displacement has almost doubled in a year, and now constitutes nearly 70% of total internal displacements, indicating the urgency of updating legal frameworks to protect this growing group. Whilst the financial impact on host regions is often examined, the personal financial toll on climate migrants is frequently overlooked. Financial instability not only drives displacement but also deepens poverty and insecurity for those affected. As shown on the map, the Global South, consisting of many lower middle-income countries, is more vulnerable to climate change due to environmental reasons, as well as weaker climate defences and poorer emergency response systems. Many people in these countries may rely on the primary sector for income, making them particularly vulnerable to climate disasters and often forcing their displacement with limited assets. Once displaced, migrants may face challenges in finding a source of income, especially if their skills, such as in agriculture, don't match urban economies, leaving them at greater risk of exploitation. Even after reaching safety, many climate migrants remain on the margins of society due to social exclusion, which makes resettlement and integration difficult. Without legal documentation, migrants are often excluded from education, healthcare, housing, and formal employment, leaving them invisible to support systems. This can be exacerbated by language and cultural barriers, which create communication challenges. This isolation can trap migrants in a cycle of poverty if they are unable to access basic services, increasing their vulnerability to exploitation and abuse. Many climate migrants face stigma and xenophobia, as they are often labelled as illegal immigrants and blamed for straining resources, fostering resentment and tension with host communities. Climate migrants are an increasingly vulnerable group who urgently need global recognition and support. Outdated systems must be reformed to reflect current patterns of displacement and to ensure protection for those most in need. Firstly, international frameworks should expand to include climate migrants, granting them asylum rights, legal status, and access to basic services. Whilst defining climate migrants creates complexities in implementing this, it does not justify their exclusion. Financially, there should be greater investment in climate defences in vulnerable areas to reduce forced migration, as well as investment in host countries to improve job access, training, and fair wages for migrants. Social inclusion is also vital. Education, healthcare, and housing must be more accessible to migrants, and there should be greater public awareness to foster empathy and reduce discrimination. Ultimately, climate migrants' vulnerability stems not from environmental crises but from societal inaction.